Print media, Post Korea. Good. You by yourself or you with the team? Tupla. Okay. National, one or two? Two. Okay, I think we should take, because the line of questioning is similar. So we should take also one talk. We have one talk here or no? I thought I must come after lunch. Yeah. Sunday Chronicle. Okay, no, they come after lunch. We'll take a Post-Korea and National together because the line of questioning is, inquiry is the same. So we'll put you guys together and ask questions. Committee member, you ready to resume? Okay. Okay, we are resuming this hearing. We invite Post-Korea and National to take your seat. Thank you. I think first of all, we'll ask each of you to introduce yourself. And if you have any opening remarks to make, one rep from each side. And then we'll begin questions. But thank you for coming. Post Korea can go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Deputy Chairman, and members of the committee for inviting the Post Korea to appear before you. I have with me Matthew Vary, who is our digital director, and he oversees our digital platform of the paper.
Thank you, National.
Thank you, Chairman, and your committee for inviting us. My name is Christine Pakakota. I'm the editor-in-chief of the National, and I have with me Frank Colma. Sengi Colma, he's the editorial director. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll be beginning the hearings. I'll ask the. Oh, do you have any presentation you want to make, written or verbal presentation?
Yes, I have a short remark to make before. Okay, my name is Toragia Kalola. I'm privileged to represent Post Korea here today. Chairman, in my 31 years of being a reporter in the mainstream, this is, or maybe, history of our country in that this is the first time a parliamentary committee has been set up by Parliament to inquire into the role and impact of media in PNG with the objective to improve the standard of journalism, restore the integrity of journalists and ethics of journalism in PNG. Just by way of explanation, the Post Korea is 55 years old and is the oldest daily published newspaper in our country. It is 51% owned by News Corp Limited and 49% owned by Papua New Guineans, in which 27% of this is owned by National Superannuation Limited. In those 55 years, most of my predecessors have also appeared in the All House of Assembly and the new Parliament before parliamentary committees to answer to some often misunderstood outrage of how parliamentary reporting were made by our reporters. I can also remember those parliamentary committees like the Public Accounts, the Privileges Committee. The members were harsh and tough with their inquiries, and honestly speaking, this thought has always struck with me. But yeah, I am before a committee that's a different mandate, and a very appropriate one too, that we in the media can hope to work together with you to promote and deliver the development needs of the country through honest, accountable use of the various forms of media. Chairman, I am assured by your words that your committee works for the people and represents the people's interests, hopes, and their voice. The Post Korea concurs with you on that view because journalism is not a crime, but a fundamental pillar of democracy, as espoused through the notion of a fourth estate, the voice of the people. The media represents the people. Without the media, the people have no voice. And so, to me, as editor of the Post-Korea, I'm encouraged in your deliberations yesterday, especially your questions to Secretary Mateo Haino and his department on the proposed National Media Development Policy. Post-Korea is a private media organization and is the owner of the country's oldest newspaper. We agree in principle the rationale that the media is a valuable tool in supporting development objectives by providing a platform for information dissemination, civic engagement, monitoring and evaluation, empowerment, economic development, conflict resolution, and environmental protection. We will also agree that it is important for governments and media organizations to work together to harness the potential of media to support development initiatives and promote a more sustainable, equitable world. Private media organization, as in the case of Post-Korea, is a business. We primarily sell news for advertising space. We agree that there has to be a standard PNG journalistic ethical code. In journalism schools, we were taught the universal media ethics, widely known to journalists as the professional code of ethics or the canons of journalism. There are various existing codes, but there are common elements, including the principles of truthfulness, accuracy, objectivity, impartiality, fairness, and public accountability. The core business of a newspaper comes from advertising. Advertisers compete to sell their goods and services. The competition is promoted by a newspaper which itself is a competitive entity. When this competitive edge is there, we ask the question, what will be the ramifications? Now I just want to touch on media freedom in PNG. Media freedom is enshrined in the National Constitution. Media is one of the 4 pillars of the representative democracy we have. There are sufficient laws to deal with unethical journalism under the Defamation Act and the Cybercrime Code Act. True, there are real problems in both the media industry and the government in terms of having an honest, transparent relationship. Unethical journalism in the media industry as opposed to lack of media and communication strategy and plan on the part of government. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. National, you have an opening remark? That will be also part of the submission.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. We will have a written submission with your committee within the week. We concur with our colleagues in the Post-Korea with the media, the role of the media, and the manner in which we conduct our business. Mr. Chairman, in 1987, a member of Parliament called Gabriel Ramoy introduced the Mass Media Tribunal Bill. He too wanted to know what it is we do in our business. And Mr. Chairman, we told him at that time, and I was there, and we said, we do what you do. We do our business in the best way that we can for our country. We are limited by the laws that we have. We cannot go beyond being a citizen of this country. We cannot by the rules that we conduct ourselves with, professional or otherwise, make us less. And so media or politics or in whatever industry that we have, we are here in the business of ensuring that this country prospers, that this country is better by every one of our conduct. And so yes, you're right in asking us as professionals in the media industry to come before you and to put to you and your committee how it is we better our country by our conduct, by the manner in which we operate. And you will ask, as we go through this proceeding, how it is that we regulate ourselves. How is it that we ensure that there is no misinformation or disinformation or whatever, that there is no malicious intent. I will tell you that at 8 o'clock, I begin my work at the national newspaper. And by around 12 o'clock, another team comes in. They come in to look at my work and to say, how is it you have done it? To look at the English language, to look at the facts that are provided. And at about 5, 6, 7 o'clock, another team comes in. And at 11 o'clock at night, another team comes in.
Sorry, Director. We just need to do an introductory. That question will come in.
We are dedicated in one moving theme, in one moving system to what we all are striving for. Okay, sometimes humanly we make mistakes, but the whole system of a newspaper, of a newsroom, is dedicated towards ensuring that we bring up to the people a fair, accurate, balanced news. And so if you want, a newsroom is just got one purpose, and that is to provide something good and accurate and balanced for our country. And this is what we do.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Thank you. We'll ask some more questions for you to explain your process in your newsroom. But first, let's begin some questions, so that when you submit your answers, it will be according to the way we want to collect information for the inquiry. Thank you. Okay, my committee members are ready for the questions. They will begin the questioning inquiry.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, and I want to also thank you, Editor, Post Korea, and National for taking time out to be here in this inquiry to provide some feedback. Basically, my questions will center on terms of reference 1 and 2, where we look at the impact of misinformation, disinformation, sensationalized reporting on society and state of governance, and also the role that you play in terms of maintaining those standards, ethics within the society. I'll start by asking the questions. If you can, it's the same question, for both of you. So after one answers, we'll have the other party to answer. The first question is, can you describe the process, your editorial process? Where do you start? Where do you end?
For the post-Korea, we have morning conferences once by 8 o'clock, by 9 o'clock. We have a morning conference where all the reporters are in. The chief of staff conducts the morning conference. Basically, he asks the reporters what tips they have, and after taking it, all the reporters go out to gather their information. After that, when the reporters come back, there is a 12 o'clock conference again with the reporters, and that's where the chief of staff basically asks them what they've brought for us to publish for the next day. And the reporters go back and start writing the stories. By 4:30, that's the main editorial conference, where I, as the editor, is the chairperson, and there is a committee that sits down to vet and place the stories. The committee comprises of all the section heads in the paper. That's from the sports page, business page, all the way to the news pages. So all the section heads read out what stories they have, and the chief of staff supports, and there is always an argument before I make the last decision in determining which story goes to which page. And then it goes down to our subs. Now, there are different people in the night. The reporters knock off at 4 o'clock, and there's a second shift that comes in. That's the sub-editors, copy cleaners, copy tasters, and proofreaders. So with the list that the chief of staff has made, it's already listed, and the subs just come. The sub-editors, they come and start laying out the page. And from there it is sent down to the main printing area for print.
National, would that be a same process, or you have a different arrangement?
Okay, thank you. We have a very similar process. We start off at 8 o'clock where the reporters come in, and they basically tell the news editor what they're working on for the day. The same with the business desk and the sports desk. After that, at 10 o'clock, the respective editors meet with the editorial director and I to tell us what their respective team members are planning to work on for the day. When the reporters come back from their assignment, they're all expected to debrief the news desk on what they have, whether they've been able to achieve what they had planned to for the day or not. And the respective desk compiled a list of stories. We meet briefly around 2 o'clock just to firm up on what we had discussed at our 10 o'clock meeting. Usually at the 10 o'clock meeting, we would say, this is a potential page one, this is potential page leads for the different pages we have. And at 2 o'clock, we see if we can firm up whether we have that page one story already or another story is developing for the pages. Then at 4 o'clock is our main editorial meeting, where I chair the meeting with all the editors, and that includes our night editors, the production team as well, our copy editors. We're all sitting at that meeting before we make a decision on what stories run, goes on what page, what is the page lead. It's a collective decision by all the editors, and that's where, they ask questions. Is this story, have we spoken to the other party? So at that meeting, we strive to make sure that all our stories are fair and balanced. And then from there, the news team goes home, and the production team takes over from there with the layout and the printing.
So it would be correct to say that it's a team decision in terms of what news goes out the next day, and not yourself as the editor.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a discussion. We all have to discuss and agree to that before the editor actually makes the decision whether we go with that story or we drop it and we get another story.
Okay. Yeah, one of the important elements to your stories is ensuring the integrity of the story is maintained, and the facts and the source of that. So just explain, how do you proof check or double check in terms of the source? Do you contact the person you are making the story out of, or how do you go about it?
Yes, this is one of, I would say this is one of the main things that senior staff in the newsroom do. When a story comes in, we look at it. We look at it on a journalistic point of view, and also we look at it on the business side of the view. I mean, business side of things. When I say business, it's not about advertising, but it's about what the readers would want, who would want to buy that story. And yes, for your question, once the story comes, it goes through that questioning, where we call the reporter, ask him if he has checked. If it's a one-sided story, sometimes we tell him to hold back the story until he gets the other side of the story, and we try to balance it.
Okay, we have the vetting process similar to what my colleague there has said. So we actually vet the stories, asking questions, and if we are satisfied that the story that has been submitted is correct, the facts are true, it's not going to be defamatory to anybody, or if it's not going to, we have a social responsibility to ensure that our news is true and the facts are there, so it does not cause any disharmony in the community after it's been published, then we go ahead with the story. But we have a vetting process that editors use to follow in making decisions on when a story should run.
Okay, thank you. Are there instances where the editorial process and the decisions on the stories have been influenced by any external parties, where you are being pressured from outside to publish a story or not to publish a story? Like the Neville has previously alluded to an instance where there's such pressure from external sources to you as an editor in terms of publishing or not to publish certain stories.
Well, as for me, I don't see any influence. It's just through the committee, our editorial committee, that decides. And yes, in my experience, yes, there's been some pushes, but in my time, I don't think I've been influenced to either stop or run a story.
I've been editor for about 7 years. So during that time, we've had I would not say direct influence, but phone calls would be made about certain stories, asking, is this story running in the paper? Um, we've had that instances, but as an editorial team, we have been able to say, yes, we're running the story. It's about this. If you have any comments to make, if it's the aggrieved party, then they're invited to give their say as well.
Okay. Just finally from me, we just heard from the Media Council with regards to standards and ethics. You also mentioned, Editor, that there's also a universal code of ethics that is widely adopted. But if we are developing our national code of ethics, do they also meet those universal standards as well? Are we in compliance with that, or are we developing our own code of ethics?
Yeah, thank you. The Post Korea is part of the media, PNG Media Council, and we've also been participating and been contributing with the Media Council of PNG. And the Post Korea adopts what our president has presented to you.
The national also complies, and we follow on with the current development in the code of ethics that's being put together by the Media Council.
Thank you so much, National and Post Korea staff, especially in the media, especially in communication, in the area of communicating in Papua New Guinea. And I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, before asking questions, thank you so much. I think you are the important organizations, bodies in Papua New Guinea to continue to disseminate what's going on in the country in different sectors of what you normally put into a newspaper in your editorial, especially particularly and concerning general information that has been given to the public, to the Papua New Guineans, especially. A lot of insight in the post-Korea and national regarding political issues that have been put in there, business activities, sports, and other important areas, international issues that comes up, and you continue to inform the public. And of course, it is a body that is mostly focused and objective is to make money. I think in the newspapers, the people will buy and they read all this information, and purposely for the organization, maybe one part of it is a business entity or business activity that comes out. But I think I'd like to thank you for all you are the real presence in the system, and many times people have different perceptions. They see what sometimes maybe politicians, maybe they see the issues, they may not be are good with what has been reported. But I think that's you are able to communicate what is for the public. And thank you so much for being part of that team today, and especially coming here. And we are responsible, especially the Parliament has said that their obligation and duties and responsibility to make sure that Papua New Guineans are living peace and harmony, especially with how we communicate to each other in terms of different sectors, issues we address in the country. So much, thank you. And I think I'd like to ask you, can maybe on two sides of the team we have in front here, can you explain the role of the chief staff and sub-editors in ensuring the journalist integrity? Repeat again. Can you explain the role of the chief of staff and sub-editors in ensuring journalist integrity? Explanation of the role of chief of staff and of course the editor and journalist integrity. Yeah. National.
The Chief of Staff basically is responsible for all reporters in terms of guiding them when assigning them to assignments. Let's say your committee here sent an invitation for the inquiry, and the Chief of Staff for us, we call her the news editor. She is responsible to assign a particular reporter to cover this inquiry. So that's basically the role of the news editor, assigning reporters out on assignment. When they come back, they brief them, and the news editor then works with this reporter on how to write the story. They bring back the facts and they have that meeting. And in the process, the news editor says, okay, you need to speak to this person. This is how you write your story. Your story is not balanced. You need to go back and speak to the other party and bring back a story that is balanced and fair. So that's what the news editor does on a daily basis. That's their role. The sub-editors are those responsible for editing the story when it's been submitted and laying it out on the newspaper. That's what, and giving headlines to the story. That's what a sub-editor does. And the editor-in-chief basically is in charge of the whole editorial department, from staff welfare to ensuring that reporters go out to get their stories. Like there's a conduit between the reporters and the management. That's the role of the editor-in-chief.
Can we have a pause, Korea?
Yes, our chief of staff, similar to what my colleague from the National has stated. Basically, chief of staff is like the operations manager of any organization, where he operates the newsroom, sends out reporters to get stories, and once they come back, he assists them to make the story sellable. For the sub-editor, it's very, very similar to what my colleague has stated.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Are there instances where the editorial process and decisions have been influenced by external parties? Again, are there instances or moments where the editorial process and decisions have been influenced by external or outside somebody, external parties, politicians, example, or others, or whoever? Moments or instances that you ever come across experience like that?
Is it on? There are always influences. It would be a lie to say there are no influences. Everybody wants to get their story on the front page. Everybody wants to get the other side's story out of the pages of the newspapers. There's always influences. The reason why news organizations and established organizations like the Post Korea and the National and NBC and MTV, the mass media, mainstream as we call them, is that we have a system that I might bring in something from a one talk or a friend or a political friend. I can't get it past the editorial committee, you see. There is a system. But you can get somebody using social media, one person, with no checks and balances, just gets it there. However he says it, or she says it, whatever, they get it there. But ours, and the reason why we must keep an established media system is because we have a system. We have a system dedicated only to ensuring that this kind of influences do not act upon us. That's why we talked about 3 sets of meetings where we send people out, they come back, we tell them to go and check on their stories and establish the other side of the story and come back. So through that process, we are able to say, oh, no, you know, that story won't go. And I think that basically, you know, makes our system the least able or the least where you can penetrate with your set of whatever agenda you have. I think the established media
And post-Korea, how do you handle situations like that? Yes.
Well, we also, like my colleague has stated, it is it's a committee's in choosing and allowing stories to run. It's a committee decision, and the editor is the final one. As for your question of influence, I can honestly tell you that no, I don't think there is influence in what we want to run on our front page or inside our pages.
Committee, may I just add onto this? It's also the business in its nature. You will always have a debate. Anyone who calls into the newsroom, whether they be a politician or a buai seller, has a voice. So they will share that voice with the editor. It doesn't go past the committee. That happens every afternoon. But their voice is important to listen to. It's a debate. The pressure is part of the business.
Yes.
You argue with the editor and his team, basically on newsworthiness, who it affects, and of course the repercussions. Right. So it is a daily occupational hazard, as we may say, for our business too as well. Not necessarily pressure to influence a story, but a healthy debate in the conversation. Yeah.
Very good. What measures are in place to prevent the publications of misinformation and disinformation by posts in the newspaper on both Press with the National?
We have a vetting process, as I've mentioned. So when news come through, we go through, we check the information or the report that the reporter has written. And if there are misinformation, we believe that's misinformation. And if we're able to put a stop to that before it gets published, we do that. We're all humans, we make mistakes. So sometimes in the process of editing, mistakes do come up in the paper and the publication the next day. We have a process in place where the aggrieved party, if they raise their concern that this story or the information that we've published is not correct, we do retract the story or make an apology the next day, and we make the correction to our online, the article on our online page as well. So we have a process in place to make sure that, to address the misinformation and disinformation getting into the newspaper.
Thank you. Post-Korea.
Yes, like the president of the Media Council was asked, we don't have a fixed code of conduct, but for each media organization there is a checklist. And as for the Post Korea, that checklist is also from our parent company in Australia, and there are 10 points that we always consider, and that's to prevent disinformation and misinformation. I will submit these 10 points in my written submission. It's very long for me to go through all of it.
Thank you. Very good. Yes. How does the especially both side Post Korea and national handle the sensitive topics that attempts to editorial decision making? Sensitive topics that enters your room or comes into you. How do you handle it? Sensitive topics, political things, okay, or maybe that will involve, integrity of the person or something like that.
We apply the same checks that we would apply to a story about, say, Prime Minister James Marape, as we would apply to a beggar on the street. We ensure that his name is spelled correctly, that whatever issues he's saying is correct and is just and fair. Sometimes, and a lot of times, we would not say a lot of things that, say, the Prime Minister would say against his opponent, or his opponent, whatever he says against the Prime Minister. We would not apply that, because we know that it is, okay, there's politics, but if you get personal, we'll not allow that. And so through our process, we just make sure that it is fair and fair comment, and it is the truth. And beyond that, we try not to. And that's how we apply the judgment to everything, or we try to. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Post Korea.
Yes, like in my opening statement, even if it's sensitive, it still goes through the story's accuracy, its objectivity, fairness, and of course the public accountability. It goes through this, and if it doesn't meet that, we hold it back.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask some questions. This regard to your ethics, code of ethics, and your newsroom editorial process. Do you subscribe to Media Council code of ethics, Post Korea?
Yes, we do, because we are a financial member also to the Media Council.
As members of the Media Council, yes, we do subscribe and abide by the Code of Conduct.
So that means that in your respective organizations, so if there's any breach of your code of conduct and ethics, you surely have establish some sort of process to rectify it or discipline post?
Yes, yes, we do.
National?
Yes, we do that also.
So is there any instances of code of conduct among your journalists or ethics? Breaches, I mean, instances of breaches among your journalists and with regard to the code of conduct and ethics?
Yes. As for us, yes, we received. We used to receive complaints mainly from the public, but then the media council, they go through the media council also, and the media council president sends me an email, and I agree with him, and we try to rectify the complaint in our own process.
What are the, sorry, is this the same? Can we put the mic on so we can like open discussion or something?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the code of conduct, we use that basically to guide our reporters in how they conduct themselves on a day-to-day basis. So if there's instances where they've breached any of the points or the codes that have been mentioned, usually the aggrieved party most times would come directly to us and put a complaint or send an email, or sometimes they do that or they send it to the media council and they copy us about their complaint. We look at it and we use our internal process of vetting and disciplining if we have to on the reporter concerned if there's complaints on that. So we do have also our own internal discipline policy that we use to guide our reporters or impose if there is a need for that.
So nationally you have an internal disciplinary policy?
Yes, we do.
Post?
We also have the same like the national.
Okay. So let's say for last 6 months, is there any breaches of this code of conduct and ethics, and have you applied any disciplinary measures to any of your staff or journalists, national?
No, not for the last 6 months.
What about last year?
Yeah, last year we've had instances where conduct of our reporters while out on duty or representing the company at various events, the integrity of the company, they represent the national. Being invited to an event is not because of a person, but because you are a journalist, you work with the national. So when you go out there, we expect them to present themselves professionally. And we've had instances where we've had complaints of reporters misbehaving or stepping out of line, and we've imposed certain penalties on them.
Yes, for the Post Courier also, it's, I think just last week, I got an email from the Media Council. It's about a story, and yes, I called in the reporter and I reprimanded her. And I told her to go back and redo the story, and we will place it as per where the story was published.
Okay, so that's an instance of misinformation or disinformation, the reporter?
It's misinformation.
Misinformation. What about you? You have your reporters doing any misinformation and disinformation, and you've been?
Yeah, we have had instances of misinformation, and mostly we've corrected that by way of the next day. We have an apology or a correction or a clarification in the newspaper correcting that.
Both of you, does any misinformation and disinformation complaints from the general public leads to a deformation of cases? Any of you experiencing that in your newsroom?
Yes, there were some instances before but not now in terms of people taking us to court for defamation and all that. But in terms of misinformation, yes, we received some complaints on that. But as for disinformation, no, we haven't received any such.
National?
We've had instances where they've threatened with lawsuits, where they get their lawyer to send you a letter saying, you published this in the newspaper, that is not correct. We give you 7 days or 5 days to reply or do a correction. And again, through our process, if we see that, yes, we have made a mistake there, we correct that. There are instances where they've gone actually given summons to the newspaper, and the summons is then passed on to our company lawyer to take it on.
Okay, I would like to ask Post-Korea a bit. You mentioned that you don't have disinformation. I mean, you have instances of misinformation, but not disinformation. There's an instance in Post-Korea, just this year, last year, a report on Honorable Justin Tacheko, Foreign Affairs Minister, about his citizenship was granted in 2023. Are you aware of that article, particular news report? Post-Korea came out and said that Honorable Justin Tacheko's citizenship was given in 2023. Can you recall that article?
Yes, Chairman, I can recall it. I was the editor at the time. It went through the process that current editor has expressed. As it went through the process in the editing process, which we have certain gatekeepers, it was just a typo, misinformation. An actual date was wrong in that whole instance. So we reached out to the minister, and we explained to him, and he was very receptive. The fact the next day we put up a retraction regarding that particular instance. Yeah.
So, forgot about you saying that you apologized to the next day, but how did you get to the state of doing that simple mistake? How did I mean, because you already have the circular specific and clearly that it is 2003. How did you make that mistake? Some will see is that because you already have the information with you, the circular from the Ombudsman Commission. It's like if you don't have the information and you do it, that would be a bit of acceptable. But you already have the information, but you made that mistake. So I want to know, why is it you classifying as a misinformation as not as a disinformation?
We're classifying this as a misinformation because it wasn't intentional on our part. It was a slip and a typo. And it was also a slip on a sub-editors and proofreaders. It wasn't intentional in publishing or to tarnish or make fun of the minister.
Yeah, so that this just one figure completely changed the whole story. So that's how important your internal process is, your internal vetting process is. So, who drafts your internal vetting process? Who's the one that doing the drafting? There's an external body doing, media council doing, or your own internal body that does this? Both of you can ask the question.
For the national, it's done within the company itself.
The company itself.
Yes.
It's the same with the Post Korea within the company, but we also rely on our parent company, News Corp Limited. They also supply us this, and we localize it into the environment here in PNG.
Okay. Now, how do you have? Let me go to the case of journalism welfare. The newsroom changes every time, and your journalists come in and out. Do you have some sort of training, internal training in place regularly to educate your journalists about their code of conduct and ethics?
For the Post Korea, yes. It's always a weekly training, and it's compulsory for all reporters to attend. Any reporter that doesn't go, attend that Friday training. It's an internal one, and it's conducted by one of our senior reporters, and he goes through all the basics of reporting news. And it is also like we call it B2B. It's back to the basics in journalism. And it's conducted every Friday.
Every Friday.
Yeah, Chairman, may I just add as well, apart from that, we have modules that are sent from our parent company throughout the entire News Corp business. Those modules talk about the values and the principles, how to handle our business and our conduct as well. Those are included. And to just add a little bit more, in terms of welfare, we have health insurance, etc., even a clinic in our office premises as well. That's for the welfare of our staff. Yeah.
That's national.
Okay, we have in-house training also. Where after we do a recruitment, all those reporters that we hire on a particular batch undergo a training, in-house training, where they're advised, they're told, or they're given. We've got a house style manual where we expect all our reporters in terms of the style of writing. They're given one. They go through that. A senior editor takes them through the basics again of journalism, how we expect our stories to be written, the style that the National writes. There's a big disparity when we hire journalists from the School of Journalism, and that's being addressed by the Media Council and on that. But we've noticed that there's a big disparity in terms of theory and newsroom practice. So when they come in, we go through that induction program with them to bring them up to speed on how we expect statements to be written. If you're given a press statement, what do you do with it? Back to basics on how to write a news story. So we have that, and periodically we have other in-house trainings on. We've got a company, because the National is owned by RH, there's an in-house lawyer there that comes and takes us for defamation, the stories that come out, what do you look out for when a story is given to you, taking into consideration the elements of defamation. So we have all that, and we also have training organized by the Media Council, which we send reporters to attend.
Okay, good. Where's your journalists your source of journalists? Do they come from the journalism school, or from other media companies, or from the streets, or give us an update on where you get most of your journalism from, Post Korea. Are they finishing a journalism school or starting business and coming into journalism, or like?
Yeah, most of our reporters are from Divine Word and also University of Papua New Guinea Journalism School.
Okay.
Yeah, most of our journalists that we hire are from the two schools, and we're also now taking on board students from the University of Technology, those in the communication department. They're studying journalism as well, or a bit of writing. So we're also taking them on board. And for this year, the first time, we've had students from Unitech in the communication program come on board doing the internship.
Thank you. So, who looks after the welfare of the journalist? Your company, or how is the welfare of the? We want to know, is the internal training? There's a succession plan. Career path in your organization. After you reach the editor, where do you go? those sort of things. These are the questions from the citizens. They're interested to know. Maybe you're staying too much time spending in one organization and you get too comfortable. So it's there because you are self-regulating. So you shouldn't be occupying that, staying in one organization too long. You get too comfortable. So that's a consent. So is that consent been organized, arranged in your structure of your plan of career path for staff, for national?
Okay, I think basically it goes back to a person as an individual. What do I want to be? I decided to be a journalist, so I went and I studied journalism at the university. After that, I got a job. And what happens after that? Am I in the job just because I need the money, or is it my passion? I mean, to be paid a salary, or did I enjoy writing that it's becoming a passion? I want to continue on that. So as an individual, we can't stop them from remaining in the national for too long. It's up to them. You know, the grass could be greener on the other side, so they've decided that they've been here for only 6 months, that they've got a better offer on the other side, so they decide to move on. Others have decided to stay on and build a career in the mainstream media. So it's basically up to them.
Chairman, we share the same sentiments, and I think it's also identifying talent also within the ranks, the organizations. You see some of them so young, but they have so much promise. And then you set them on a career path through the managers and middle managers to see they can turn out to be either the business editor or the sports editor as they go along. Some see the greener pastures, they go for it. As you are, I know you're well aware that we have a high turnover, and it's because of some of these decisions that they make personally. But we've had success stories, and also within our newspaper organization, with a mother company, they allow excursions for our journalists to go out and learn how they do news in, just say, the Sydney Morning Herald as opposed to other places. So these are opportunities within that we create. But at the crux of the matter is it's a personal decision. Who feels that they want to put this in a passion, or they want to get a fortnight, it depends on them. Yeah.
Yes. So I just ask a backup question, especially post-Korea. Since you have a holding company, News Corp, how far or are there any stories on your journalists having a career pathway and being able to be exposed internationally for the sake of national? If we have any stories of success in career paths for journalists, being exposed to other international organizations, being recruited overseas?
Yes. It's work placements, okay, where we expose our journalists. We've also had successes within country and other industries. We have a former business editor who's currently running Newcrest External Affairs, who is a success story because she works within and also goes out as part of Newmont now, which is the biggest mining company in the world. These are some of the successes that we have when we place our journalists outside and exposed to. We have journalists going as far as the US through programs within the News Corp family, but also with other entities and donor agencies as well. There is pathways for success, which we have a lot of testimonies that we can also include in our submission as well, just to show what pathways are there for their welfare. Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you have workers' union in your media industry? Are you members of a union or workers' union?
No.
No, as a
No. Journalists? You guys are journalists, so you don't have a union or association.
No, we don't.
No.
So whose responsibility is to create a union or association? Post-Korea.
That's a tough question, Chairman, because we basically don't have a journalism association.
Yeah, but national, who's responsible? You're the senior journalist, am I right? Are you guys the senior journalists work for national and post-Korea for how many years now? So who's playing the leadership role in the journalism profession? I mean, that should lead for you to create an association of some sort. Are you guys thinking along that line? Whose responsibility is this? Because you're self-regulating, by the way. You have a media council, and there is no legislation governing you or policy governing you. So whose responsibility is now to create an association for journalists? What do you think? Whose responsibility should it be? Would you want the government to create an association for the journalists, or you want to create an association yourself?
Chairman, Chairman, in a nutshell, yes, you're correct, and a very pertinent question. It's probably one of the things that we've really not looked at, and I can put it down to the nature of our business, such a small industry with everyone competing to survive in a high turnover system, that most of the time we are meeting deadlines that are beyond normal working hours, and that unity sometimes tends to move into the workspace. We've, I think, also relied too much on the Media Council and its job as a uniting entity, that we forget that we also need our own entity as well. And there was one before that ran, and it's been intermittent back and forth. But I agree with you that we have to put our heads together to bring back such things, to look after our own welfare, other than our core job to the nation.
Yeah, because Media Council Media Council is the organization are subscribing to the Media Council, not the journalists. So they will be voicing the interest of the organization. But what about the journalists? Who will be the one voicing the concerns and the interest? So you 2, 3, 4 editors of the 2 biggest publishing company in the country daily, and you telling me that you don't have a association and you don't know who's responsible to create this association. Am I right in saying that?
We used to have a Papua New Guinea Journalists Association, and we were associated and affiliated with the Pacific Journalists Association, and we were affiliated also with the International Federation of Journalists at one time, and I was deeply involved in that movement. And at about the time that News Limited went to London and destroyed the fundamentals of journalism, unionism in London, I think about that time we also lost the plot in Papua New Guinea. Yes, Chairman, there's a cause. There can be something that we can have, but you got to have drivers, you got to have what it is that you are getting or want for the association and for journalists and stuff like that, and somehow, and here's something that quite honestly I do not know where we somehow lost that.
Thank you. Why I'm asking this is because the media industry is coming up in arms with regard to the media development policy, and that perception has downgraded the rank of PNG media freedom from some rank to down to 90 now. So from the Parliament side, we after the inquiry, we noted and received evidence that there is no regulation, there is no law preventing media freedom in this country. So media industry is self-regulating. So these are the things that help the freedom of media, that affects the freedom of media. The Media Council stated clearly that journalism welfare is one of the things that affect the freedom of media, sustainability, fear, you list those things down. So one of the concern is the journalism welfare. Now, who in the media industry, among you journalists, will be the one fighting for the welfare of journalists? If you are self-regulating, who will be the one fighting for your welfare for the journalists? Maybe you guys experience in the editorial processing, topos is okay. But one of those guys that the boots on the ground that goes and collect the media information for your newsroom, they have families too. They have needs too. And we have reports or instances where the stories for groundbreaking ceremonies and launching is always happening on the newspaper. Why is it happening on the? Tell me, Post Korea. Why is always this groundbreaking ceremony and launching happening on the newspaper? What's the drive in the very remote area? Why is it happening? Did you pay for the fare for the journalists to go there, or did you know that there's a news happening in that area and you send a journalist and you got that report, or some other way the report came?
Okay, for that, yes, groundbreaking ceremonies and launching of things. It's always the politicians, and they cover everything. That's
Thank you, National.
Well, we really don't necessarily have to cover groundbreakings. I don't like the groundbreakings, because you have groundbreakings and then you don't have completion of projects and stuff like that. But
What about launching?
but we're compelled and we're asked, and we've got tickets at our doors and stuff. Come for these things. If honestly you ask most newsrooms to send a reporter and a photographer into Telefomin or Menyamia or Baining, we do not have that luxury. And so, whoever is sponsoring it, we hang on the coattails and we go and we cover that. But I hope you're not finding fault with us for going along and giving you coverage.
No, I'm just trying to understand your editorial process, because you say that you on this inquiry you say that there is no influence in the editorial process, but there is influence there. Am I correct in saying that? Because the politicians sponsored the trip and you went to get the report, and I don't know whether the vetting process that you have in place, you mentioned that there is no influence in the vetting process. So now that the news coming back, could it be a perception that it is a political influence in the vetting process?
We've committed resources. We've committed a photographer, perhaps, or a reporter, and sometimes a photographer and a reporter for half a day. And what they bring back, we necessarily have to run them, and so however way you want to look at it, I mean, I don't see that as influence per se. If I needed to have an influence, is I had a photographer go to Tomuriasa's Honorable Tomuriasa's village, and I had another one go to Tari, to Honorable Prime Minister's village, and they came back with the same photograph. Then I've got a dilemma, and you might say, okay, whatever. How I judge it is the best photograph, the one that looks sharpest, and what is the nature of that event. What is more important, what would my readers be most attracted to? That's how I judge it. So I'm not influenced because you came and gave me a ticket. I don't have to come as well.
Post Korea?
Yes, Chairman, just to add on to the value that what our colleague has mentioned too as well, is that sometimes some of these events are also an opportunity as well for us in the news space. Some of us, we cannot, as President Neville Choi has mentioned, resources are very scarce. We can only send someone at the expense of 5 other areas that we won't look at. Due to the good generosity of some of these members, their officers, who want to expose the developments taking place. There are some groundbreaking ceremonies that don't take place and don't take place, but there are some that take place and do take place. These are the ones, as we've all mentioned in this whole inquiry, that deserve also the coverage that they want. And in the process of heading to these locations, Chairman, we see other issues that from the roads heading to the airports, the jetties, and these are stories that deserve to be told, that empower both the MPs, but also the people to have a voice within our platforms. Yeah, it's just
Thank you. No, I'm not against you guys, but it's just that we want to, the influence of the media. I too, all of us too take media. We want the media to report on. You are an important tool of development that to need to report on progress of work and all this. But are we influencing the editorial process? That's the concern we have, because we are concerned now that we, Rabujan RH owns the national newspaper. So is there conflict of interest with RH in your newsroom, especially in terms of reporting logs, forestry, in terms of forest logging and illegal logging and all these things? I think. Do you think there's an influence of RH in your reporting, national newspaper?
We are constantly aware of that position that we have, and we cannot bite the hands that feed us. 1 week after we started the paper, somebody called me and said, is this the daily log? And I was slow at that time. I said, what? But, we have made a decision right from the start that whatever news comes from RH, we will park it at a certain spot. We can't not publish stories on RH or on forestry, but we'll park it beyond the main news pages, which is 1, 2, 3. So we'll have it on 4 and 5, and because we are conscious of where we of our ownership, and they've accepted that. Initially they wouldn't, but now they accept it, and that's where we are. And we can't not publish.
That's good, because one of the effects of freedom of media is fear. So these are concerns that we have. If you want to be free, we need to be, free, unbiased, and all these things. So if there is fear in reporting on RH illegal if there is any illegal logging related to the activities of RH or any illegal activities, then there is freedom of media, but the effect of fear is in national newspaper.
We have carried every report, negative or positive, about RH in the newspaper.
Okay, so I'm just pointing it out. It's not on the other side there is that the drive of fear is coming to affect the freedom of media. It's also within your newsroom and organizations that also have that.
Fair point.
And what about Newscope? Who actually decide what goes on the front page of Post Korea?
It's me, the editor.
The editor. Were you, if any way, influenced by your Newscope, anyone to put which story goes to like yesterday? Thank you. Our media inquiry came today. It came in the front page. I did not influence you in any way. But apart from that, do you have any other influence that gets you to put your front page story? I'm saying that because this is a consensus from citizens of Papua New Guinea. We represent the people of Papua New Guinea, so any concerns they have, we have to ask you. So do you ever get influence to, especially from your parent company, to put front page story?
In my experience, no.
Similarly, Chairman, in my experience, no. Might I just add, there's always been that assumption that Rupert Murdoch or his son Lachlan would give us a phone call at 5 in the afternoon to put in a front page story. That is not true. The News Corp processes and policies respect that whole divide. We have largely remained independent within our own structures in PNG, as a PNG operating business.
Okay, so let's come out. You have some questions.
Just one question on responsible reporting and how far your news reach out to the region and internationally. There's a perception, just because you're profit-driven as well, so there's a perception that your headlines, in terms of sensationalizing reporting, where the marketing aspect of selling the papers come in. Do you have this sense of being responsible in terms of bad news or negative news going out on the paper? And do you take those responsibility as a citizen of this country to, as much as possible, minimize on bad news reporting? Or negative news, I should not say bad news, but negative stories.
Yes, yes, we do that. For example, if there is a matter, we do also consider that, and sometimes even if it's very newsworthy, we spike the story because it's not suitable, and also it's that sense of responsibility that we think we shouldn't publish.
There are also instances where very sensitive things have taken place. Example, Black Wednesday that took place, where you also have stories that come in from aggrieved parties like the police and the soldiers. We've had to hold back on some of those because we do not want to flare up what's already taken place. These are the responsibilities that we take seriously. When it comes to gruesome images, we, as much as possible, try to blur or leave them out from the front, because that is a policy we have as well within in-house. So those are some of the things that we do and take responsibility over as we cover our news. In terms of headlines, negativity will always be there. Positivity will always be there. And we put out what we believe and hope is the truth. And we put it in the way we put it, because at the end of the day, like you mentioned, we are a business. We have 200 plus mouths to also feed every day, Papua New Guineans, who have 10 members, and the thing goes on further. If we do not sell a newspaper, we do not have a business. And you do not have postgrad for the first time in 55 years. So it's a high turnover thing, but also it's a risky business. Any day we can break down. It costs us more to send more newspapers out to PNG than less newspapers. We don't make money from sending newspapers out. It's a high freight is the biggest challenge we have. And then the flights, and you know the rest of the story about infrastructure in this country. So it's a risky business. Every day we make losses that most of the public and even our Leonard committee would not even imagine to as well. Just explaining some of those things. Yeah.
Maybe the same question.
We, unfortunately, we tend to generally like blood, gore, sex, as individuals, and a lot of people get attracted by news of that nature, but we do not. And as a practice international, we will run a positive story on the front page and a negative story on page 3 or 2. So we try to balance all the time. And I concur with what my colleague has said on the other side. We're every day we check what is called the returns. How many papers were sold, and how many, and across the years we've decided what actually is attractive with the people out there. And sometimes we do go with images and stories that sort of shocks. For instance, we decided that we would run a picture of Jeanneline Kennedy, another young lady who was killed. And we took a long time deciding whether or not, and we decided that this cannot be accepted in society. If we don't show the picture, people will continue to be, abusive of young women. We decided to run images of piles of bodies on a truck in Enga recently, because that just can't happen in our society. You have to see it to know that we should shock the population into going against these things. So yes, sometimes we run things that may be negative, but we have to let our people know this is unacceptable. So those kind of things we decide, and it takes us a long time, over 1 hour, 2 hours of discussions, and everyone has an opinion on whether or not to do it. So we don't necessarily just put in something on the front page or in the newspaper for the sake of it. We look at it from all angles and then decide.
I think back to our journalist again. The constraint of nowadays media freedom in this country. Do you receive your journalists that go out and do reporting? Do you guys receive threats from? Fear is one of the causes that affects freedom of media. So, your journalists, you have instances of your journalists being threatened by other members of the community with regard to their news and stories post.
Yes, we do have those instances. I can just think of one example right now and give it to you. There was a story at the courthouse where one of our reporters went, and because of a previous story and she was trying to follow up, the subject and the relatives threatened her, and I had to pull her out from there. And yes, it's real.
Yes, we also have instances where our reporters are threatened, and it's mostly at the courthouse. I think last year, a year before that, we've had an instance where supporters of the person in court actually asked our reporter to give them her phone so they could go through and delete the pictures she took of them, of their relative at the courthouse. So they actually deleted all the pictures and even told her to go and delete it from the deleted in the phone as well. But we've had reporters threatened at the courthouse.
Did you report that matter to the police? They have internal affairs. Did you report that matter to the police?
No, we did not.
Did you report that matter to the police?
We brought that matter up to the arresting officer at that time, informed them that their client or the other party had threatened our reporter. And then we spoke also to the Attorney General, and we did a story on him calling on aggrieved parties in court to respect the media when they're out doing their job, but not to the police.
Okay. We had the Deputy Commissioner of Police here yesterday, and he mentioned that there is a process to file a complaint If the police threaten or assault or abuse or intimidate you guys can use that process. If the police officers go to the internal affairs at 6 Mile and report your complaint. But if the public does that, you can report to any nearest police station. Instead of leaving it out and taking it up on yourself and reporting out on the media, I think if you report it through the normal process and then follow up on it to see it get prosecuted, that will be one way for you to help freedom of media. Just a recommendation suggested to you guys.
Chairman, the job of a journalist is quite hazardous in the country, and there's constantly people who want their stories in, and people who don't want some stories in. So we're constantly, sometimes it comes by way of you run one story today, and tomorrow there's a sort of a letter from a lawyer saying if you continue this, you'll appear before the court. It appears not in direct threats, it appears like that. And we have to seek legal opinion. Do we continue with this? What is? So it appears in very many forms. Our journalists are constantly, and we have to look after them. Sometimes we send security with them. And so, yes, there is an element of threat for journalists in this country that must not be underplayed at all. It's quite, I got told one time, we know where your 2 children are going to school, we know where your wife's working, we're going to do something nasty to them, and stuff like that. So you do get direct threats to stop doing some things that you are doing. So the element of threat for journalists and media players in this country is very real.
Thank you, Post-Korea.
Chairman, just to add on to what our colleagues at National said is that there's also this fear where it is welcomed. That is the fear of being taken to court, because that is a good fear to have, because that shows how responsible we are, as opposed to social media where there are faceless people behind it. We take all the legal risk with every story we put. It's not done at ad hoc basis. And most of our journalists fear being summoned to court or taken through the legal process. And that's where we know that there is legal refuge for anyone who does not like whatever we do. Laws are in place to do that, for defamation, etc. That's the biggest fear we have, but it's part of the job, and that we welcome. And that's why we have legal processes involved to challenge those cases and see. It all comes back down to editorial judgment, which is a terminology we use in the business, where you decide whether a story is worth going for despite the legal costs that may come about. It's about standing on the rights of the story as opposed to running away from it. That is where we can make a decision as well as news heads in our everyday work. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So that leads us to the need for an association of journalist association. So can the committee rely on you, 4 of you, to start that process to create an association for the journalists so that you can have the professionals, separate the social media influencers from the professionals, so that we can ensure there is freedom of media in this area, in terms of fear, in terms of welfare, in this area, because you are self-regulating, so that should be some of the things that, as a fourth estate, that should be your responsibility to make sure that you are self-regulating. In the case that you come to say that you are not self-regulating, then you attract the government to come in. So it will be good to maintain that area, keep it neat and tidy. That's just a recommendation from our end. Before I finish with some questions, I was trying to ask you guys something, but it slipped my mind. Now, this from the members of the parliament. That's the concern. In the current government, Marape Rosso government, we are concerned that we think the media is. I want to ask your opinion. We all think that the media is biased, unbiased to us. I mean, not so with national, but with post-Korea. Is that true? That's the feeling that post-Korea reports on every bad thing that the government does, every bad thing. So we think that post-Korea is reporting is unbiased. I want to know from the post-Korea editor, is that statement true? Or should they feel like that? Should we feel like that? Sorry, it's not something that I woke up from my mind. It is something that is, that feeling is happening within the government sector, within our government caucus, that we felt that the media, especially post-Korea, is being unbiased to us as a government.
Biased.
I'm sorry, biased. Biased. Sorry, biased means you not good stories. Stories that make bad headline. One-sided. So we are feeling that. Are we? Are we right to feel that, or are we? Let's say some frank discussion on that, so that.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, if that's the perception of the politicians towards the post-Korea, I cannot answer what you've said, because I think what we've put out it's the truth, and it's real. I mean, that's the only thing that I can defend myself with, unless there is a specific story that you think is biased without imbalance, or without us checking you or the truthfulness of the story. I'm all ears for members of parliament too.
I think that's the example is the one I mentioned about earlier, with regard to Honorable Justice Tatsenko. I mean, because we feel that there's been previous stories have been biased, and now that you report on that story, it solidified, or what did I say? It qualified our statement that you are being biased. You get the point that I'm bringing. So when you do a misinformation, or even though your previous story is accurate, and it's not biased, but when you do a misinformation or disinformation stories, then it qualifies that your stories are all biased. That's the mentality that your audience or your readers are taking. It's not to discourage you from doing that, but I'm just mentioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So the effect of disinformation and misinformation can affect our perception too on our media.
Chairman, sorry, just to add on to what my editor has mentioned also, is that we must all not forget where the positions that people in power sit. And as long as you sit up there, there will always be criticism, not just to you or your committee members or even the government of the day. Every prime minister will be challenged by the press. If no other press, I can only speak for post-Korea, are not going to do it, someone has to do it somewhere in between. There needs to be a voice of reason going against the tide. That's how we become a better democracy, and how we question things. And then we become more fruitful as we move towards the next 50 years. Yes, that's the challenge. We get things wrong, but we get a lot of things right too in the process. And we are developing the country. We've seen it since 1975, before that, and we'll continue to see it with you as well. And we hope that as the committee, you stand by us, but at the same time question us as we question you, and we appreciate this whole exercise and the importance of it. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
Was any more questions? If not, you make it close.
How do you manage the conflict of interest coming into your room on both sides? Conflict of interest, somebody is not far from you. Maybe.
We submitted, if I were to report on something where there's a conflict, first of all, I wouldn't take the assignment. If I were to go to my community or my political party or whatever, I wouldn't take it. And if there is anything where I'm compelled to do it, then we declare that I've taken it from this source, and it is up to you, Christine, to decide whether you run it or not. So, you know, we decided where conflict of interest on stories are concerned, where conflict of interest in relation to our ownership is concerned, I've given you the answer before. We've got a set place where the owner can come in. But on occasions, when what they say warrants front page, for instance, we will decide it on the merit of that case. But we've got a set place for it. So conflict of interest, we've got a committee that is there for that, precisely that, this kind of thing.
Ours is also similar to what my colleague has said. There is a editorial committee that determines and decides on what stories that will run and whatever, or if the reporter comes and says, this is from my relative, we consider that also within that and decide.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you. I think we can close off here. Thank you. Thank you so much, Post Korea. Next year, the most readable two dailies in the country. And your valuable contribution this morning is appreciated by the committee. We would appreciate if you can do a written submission based on our questioning now, based on the terms of reference that we have. So we can, if there is any recommendation that you want to see, we take to the floor of make recommendation to the government, floor the parliament, then you can also send in your written submission. Because you are a self-regulating entity, it's good that there must be someone, you know, someone maintain that the freedom of media applies to everyone, not only to you guys, but to everyone. Okay. So I think we can close it. And the due date for all submission to come through is July, end of July. Huh?
Yeah,
Edison, I'm right? End of July. So,
sorry, Chairman, can I just make a last statement?
sure.
We will make submissions, written submissions. But on behalf of the Post Korea, I just wish to put it on record that can you also, in your recommendations in Parliament, ask for the information, freedom of information? Are you able, is Parliament able to pass that law? Because there are so many things, so many stories that we were trying to do, but we're restricted with it, and we need that freedom of information. Freedom of Information Act.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Very good. Make it part of your
We definitely will.
Okay, thank you. And I think we'll take a break for lunch. And thank you, Post Korea. Thank you, National, for attending. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the lunch or whatever light finger food should be enough for all of us.